which is exciting. And we'll be getting more scheduled through the rest of the year. We are recording, and we will be posting this later online, and Lauren will be getting you a link to that fact. And we're just having a lot of fun out here. We're closed. We're not sure when we're going to be opening. Right now, indoor museums have to be closed through September 10th, and then they're reevaluating. So let's all hope that our case counts and all that are going down, which I think I heard this morning, it sounded like they were going the right direction slowly. So wear those masks, and hopefully we'll be open in 3 to 4 weeks. But in the meantime, we're going to continue with all this virtual stuff, and particularly with gatherings like this. I think this is going to be hanging out for a while, and it is a way for people further afield to participate. Like Holly was saying, she's got some friends here from out of state, it sounds like, so that's exciting. I wanted to mention a little background on Holly, and then she's going to get going on her presentation. And it sounds like a lot of you already know Holly's background, but for the few of you who may not, Holly was born in fairly nearby Redlands. She got an arts degree, a bachelor's at UCSB, and then went down a little further south to San Diego State for a graduate degree. And then she and her husband, Terry, moved to Santa Barbara a little over 30 years ago and raised a family and pursued their different careers. And I came to know Holly as part of the Rivers Journey show and part of the Rose Compass Artist Group, which are 6
I have the camera
artists,
off right now.
most of whom are here on the call. And we're excited to see those faces here as well. The Rose Compass ladies came to us. They were all pursuing gouache, learning gouache, or getting more into gouache if they already were. And they'd been inspired by a show that we had here a few years before that by Thomas Paquette. And together we evolved this idea of exploring the San Ynez River and watershed. And they really liked that. And they had a lot of fun fully exploring that for, I want to say, close to a year. I mean, they got the river in all kinds of different states of super dry and spring and water coming back. And it was really exciting to see truly that journey of the river and the watershed. And we had a very popular show, thanks to them, that then traveled to other destinations in the county. And then the relationship has continued, which we're very excited about. So she and Nicole joined our exhibitions committee within about a year, I think, after the show ending. And then Holly just joined our board, just like last week. So we're very excited about that. And as such, she gets the privilege of not only being on exhibitions, but now chairing our exhibitions and collections committee. So we're really grateful to her volunteer efforts on that behalf. With that, I'll just say Holly is just a joy to work with, as are all the Rivers Journey Rose Compass artists. And we're really grateful for all their efforts, and Holly right now for her extra level. And she's just so creative, as I'm sure you all know, but then also very practical and very thoughtful in what she does. It's a great marriage of all those things in order for her to be able to produce the kind of art that she does. So with that, I'm gonna let Holly take over and show her presentation, and then we're gonna do a nice lively Q&A after that. Take it away.
Thank you, Stacy. And I just want to recognize how valuable our small local museums are. They might be small in size, but not small in importance. So I'll speak to that after my presentation. This is the most stressful part for me, is getting this puppy started. So it's only going to be 15 minutes. Be taking notes so you're going to ask lots of good questions. Remember, it's all going to be recorded, so don't ask me anything too embarrassing. But I will look forward to tuning back in with you. So I'm going to turn it over to a presentation.
The paintings in this body of work feature strong female figures
who unravel the numerous layers of cultures and myths that continue to accumulate in California. So who is Califia? Califia is a mythical Black warrior queen who raises an army of women warriors. In 1510, a Spanish writer by the name of Rodriguez de Montalvo wrote a popular novel called The Adventures of Esplandian. It told a story about Califia, the queen of an island that was rich in gold. In 1535, Hernan Cortez was credited with discovering our region. Originally, they thought Baja was an island, so they prophetically named it after Califia's mythical island called California. In our rapidly changing world, what new myths are we creating to define who we are today? So how did I find Califia as my muse? I've been involved with 3 different projects, all of which focus on our regional cultures and landscape. The first project focused on people, the second on symbolism, and the third on our environment. In 2016, the Portraits of the Central Coast project was exhibited at the Wildling Museum of History and Art. The project highlights individuals who represent one of the many cultures that make up this region through a portrait painting, video interview, and written biography. At the same time, I was building multi-layered monoprints with symbols that represent our many cultures and folklore. I called this the Archaeological Dig. The characteristics of monoprinting is that no 2 prints are alike. Often there is a pattern or image that is repeated. This medium reflects the uniqueness found in each person. We are all one of a kind. This monoprint, called Coyote Breath, holds Native American myth, native flora, and cattle ranching history as primary motifs. All of the icons are held together with the Fibonacci tiles and spiral. The Fibonacci spiral is found throughout nature and mathematics. You can see my wood block with the spiral behind the chart showing the tile and number sequence. This spiral shape is found in your ear, the golden ratio in art, and even in our constellations. This is the wood block that has the carved tile sequence. Here it is inked and ready to go through the press using the petals and leaves from California poppies. This year I was finally printmaking in the spring and could use poppies from my garden. This will be a new layer for a number of prints. The third project was the River's Journey, and it brought me back to the landscape. 6 women artists followed the San Ynez River for over a course of a year, following it from source to sea. The artists formed an art collective called Rose Compass. This included Connie Connolly, myself, Libby Smith, Nicole Strasberg, Nina Warner, and Pamela Zwelberg. All 6 artists were creating these small gouache paintings. This was a stimulating new approach to painting for me compared to the larger, laborious oil paintings and the detailed printmaking of the projects before. Originally, my images were very landscape driven, but then I started to think of water in all of its forms, from clouds to rain to river to sea. How as humans did we interact and rely on water? And this is where the San Ynez River became a female figure. The river morphed artistically from a landscape into a spirit. The San Ynez River and the city of Santa Barbara have a long history. The majority of Santa Barbara's water comes to the city via 3 dams and tunnels on another side of a mountain range. I shifted my focus from the Santa Ynez River as landscape to creating the river as a beautiful young woman. I hired some friends to pose for some ideas I had about Lake Cachuma. This was the start of the Califia Muse. The finished painting is called Inez and Barbara. It speaks to the beauty of our region and the water relationship Santa Barbara has with the Santa Ynez River. A day was spent scouting out the flower fields in Lompoc. We were greeted by a crew of women yelling gritos while blasting Mexican folk music. I thought of the history of the many women who had worked in the fields of California. I found my strong Calafia muse in these flower fields. LA Lawns and Lies explores our relationship with water within the state of California. White picket fences and green lawns are iconic images that promise blissful home and prosperity. A Hollywood version of a bikini-clad cowgirl pulls out her pistol. Is she the water sheriff or a bandit who robs Northern California of her water? Which myth will survive? What is true? There was an epic wildflower bloom in 2019 after a 7-year drought. Wildflowers will throw out massive amounts of seeds in a last-ditch effort to survive. Super Bloom was inspired by this wildflower bonanza. This painting addresses subjects such as our native, non-native plant species. Our multiple migrations to the state, our growing population, who is native, and how our population is changing in California. California is the 5th largest economy in the world. Every year I go back to printmaking for a couple of months. Last year, I was reading a lot about our monarch butterfly decline in California. This is when I made the connection between our Dias de los Muertos, La Catrina figure, and our endangered species. The dapper skeleton or elegant skull is a 1910 zinc etching by the Mexican printmaker Jose Guadalupe Posada. Diego Rivera also popularized this figure as La Catrina in his mural, Dream of a Sunday Afternoon in Alameda Park. I wanted to link the La Catrina figure with the decline of the California monarch butterfly migration. I built a set with eucalyptus leaves and hired a beautiful model, Sasha Gonzalez, to pose for several ideas. Mariposa monarcha came from that studio session. I'm a fan of Gustav Klimt's patterning and play of realism and surrealism. I'm fascinated by the fact that our state's flag uses a grizzly bear that is now extinct in California. So you will find bears in a lot of my prints and paintings. While researching this paradox, I learned a lot about the environmental and social shift that occurred during the gold rush. The gold rush gave birth to the California dream. Overnight, California gained the international reputation as the Golden State. Generations of immigrants have been attracted by the idea of prosperity ever since. California farmers, oil drillers, movie makers, airplane builders, computer and microchip makers, and dot-com entrepreneurs have each had their boom times in the decades after the gold rush. Before They Came is a large painting that is addressing some of those same ideas. While the grizzly was becoming extinct, there was also a genocide of our Native American population. Buried within this painting are figures copied from German paper dolls of Native Americans. There was and still is a European fascination with the West. All of these figures reference the epic environmental and social shift that was started in our state during the gold rush. In the end, the handling of the layers of paint and the visual confusion begs to question what came first, which image is on top, and what lies beneath. I was inspired by Ethan Turpin's video installation called Burn Cycle, Living with Fire. In my painting titled Burning Down the House, a mother and child watch a surreal forest fire. There is a botanical and lace doily pattern on a monoprint that lies underneath the oil painting. This references our domestic homes that are currently in the path of the drought and fire pattern of global warming. Whales also play a prominent role as imagery in my work. I found these ornate panels that would elevate these small paintings into symbolic icons. I've rimmed the panels with copper, and when the light reflects, it adds to that iconic feel. In Pacific Disposition, I use silver leaf in the underwater scene to get some of the luminescence you find in starry skies. We know less about our ocean depths than we know about space. 95% of the ocean is completely unexplored. One of my large woodblock plates is carved with the well-known constellations. In Starry Night, you may find many of our California symbols in the night sky. This last year, I have started adding embroidery and small milagros on my prints. The word milagro means miracle. These small charms hold hope and prayers, and I want to use more of these in my work. My Lover's Eye collection depicts iconic California landscapes on ornate panels. Each landscape has a mythical Califia muse's eye hidden within. Eyes have long been thought of as the window of the soul, alternately revealing or concealing one's deepest thoughts and feelings. Symbolically, the eye has turned up as the all-seeing eye of God. Lover's eye jewelry was popular in the late 17 and early 1800s, when the miniature portraits depicted a spouse or lover. Typically painted on ivory, the portraits were fashioned as brooches, rings, pendants, and lockets. Because the tiny paintings revealed only the eye, the subject's identity could be kept secret. My Lover's Eye Oak Savannah. There's an exhibition space at the Wildling Museum named the Valley Oak Gallery. Our oak trees can live up to 600 years. Our environment impacts our individual life experience, and our life can impact our environment. If you find a symbol or object, a plant or an animal in my work, you know it's there for a reason. September's crow is centered on the acorn. The acorn is the seed for our native oak trees. This print also uses a lot of pollinators, like birds and bees. We are also pollinators. We can share thoughts and ideas. This final image holds a thought that the seed of our native oak tree was once a food source for the grizzly mascot that flies on our state's flag. I hope that my artwork plants a seed of hope and curiosity about our incredible state of California. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you can, pop over to the wildlingmuseum.org website and make a donation. Your help will ensure this museum survives our pandemic. Better yet, become a member and enjoy all of the events and exhibits. Another big thank you goes to Sullivan Goss for sharing the Califia paintings and Archaeological Dig prints. They are open 7 days a week, and you can come by with a mask and enjoy all of their shows. I'll be happy to meet you here too if you let me know when you're coming. Califia will be hanging until September 21st. Uh-oh, did I click out?
Thank you, Holly. That was great.
Fantastic, Holly.
Thank you. Well, I hope nobody fell asleep.
Bravo.
Bravo, that was wonderful.
Everybody made it? Okay, I'm going to switch over to my iPhone in just a minute once we get it set up. But fire away. I'm ready for all sorts of questions.
I have a question.
Oops. Go ahead, whoever said that.
Penny. Technically, you go ahead.
Okay, I have a question. When did you bring the Fibonacci spiral into your art?
Oh, now I'm getting double feedback. I'm going to mute this.
We'll just leave that one and go with this one.
Oh, okay, I'm going to leave this meeting.
There you go.
Okay. Let's see. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I think I'm going to connect to my AirPods. Hang on. Just one more technical little goodie.
We lost your video.
Oh, lost the video. Okay. Maybe we can find that again. Oh, there. Oh, super. Yay. Okay. Ta-da. All right. Fibonacci. Can you guys see me? And
No, I can't. Oh, wait.
okay. No.
No. Can anybody see her?
Yeah, I think
She is.
it froze.
Can see her in gallery view.
Unmuted.
You can also type in your questions in the queue, in the chat box if you want to do it that way.
It is. It's the volume on this needs to go up. That's what I did.
And you can also pin Holly's
all the way up.
thumbnail.
If you put it on speaker view, she'll come up.
Yeah. So your top right corner
There. Okay.
of your screens hits
Okay.
view.
Okay. I can hear you now. Can you hear and see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, super. Okay. Fibonacci. The project
Nope, it's not working.
has really studied art and the golden mean and how famous paintings.
Right.
So, and then you start researching it and you find out that it has this complete scientific, oh, something's not working now.
I think your audio is better now. We're having a little internet issue, maybe.
No?
Try it now.
Oh, brother.
I'll mute it again. That would help.
Wait,
Okay.
I can't see you. I don't know if anybody else can.
No.
Yes. So top right corner, hit speaker view.
I wonder if I just hold it.
I think it's more your voice that's not, it's sort of garbled.
Yeah, that's the internet connection.
Which,
It was working great yesterday, guys. We did test everything out, just so you know.
yeah,
Okay.
well,
I'm
look at what
so
it,
sorry about this technical.
it looks pretty bad outside. I don't
Oh.
know if it has
We're,
any.
we're
Yeah.
hearing you okay right
I
now,
don't even know
Holly?
why the sound isn't working.
Okay, now that's good, Holly.
That would help.
Yeah, you can hear me because
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't hear you guys. So maybe Susan will reconnect me.
You can't hear us because we're on mute.
Oh, you know why too? Is, let me go over here to speaker.
There's always a little bit of
Okay.
a snafu in each one of these.
Okay. We're gonna keep on working on this, but go ahead and ask your question again. Give me another question and we'll get some visual here.
I was wondering also, Holly, I have a great list of folks that emailed me in advance. If
Okay, perfect.
If we want to go through those while you're getting set up, and then.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, so I have a question from Nicole, who said, your first exhibit focused on local people and culture, the second on the state of water locally, and this new exhibit on the bigger topic of California as a whole. Do you anticipate continuing to explore this fascination with your home state? And if so, where do you think it might lead you next?
I think that's a really great question because so much energy has gone into this project and getting it hung and all of the excitement. And I've actually had some time to kind of slow down, and I'm not making art at the moment. I'm just doing all of these wonderful, fun activities that go along with having a show. Hey, perfect. I'm going to go over here. That you can hear me. So yes, I am interested in continuing on. Let's see, start video. Exploring different things about the state, but you never know where your muse is going to lead. I don't know what's coming next as far as exactly how I'm going to make the work, but the subjects are still very much on top of my mind. All of these projects have more or less trained me how to look in a different way. So now that I have this new skill of looking, who knows what I'll look at, and it might be completely fascinating. I'm also interested in exploring different materials. So that adds to what I can look at by looking at different materials.
Great. I also got another great question from Connie, who asked, did you start this body of work by starting with your printmaking and then moving into painting, or did your process involve developing your ideas by working back and forth from printmaking and painting? How does one process inform one another?
They do go back and forth. I can't tell you which came first, the chicken or the egg, because I've been printmaking and painting. But the portraits of the Central Coast project was happening at the same time that I was printmaking. The prints got very elaborate, and I will come and stand in front of one and talk a little bit about it, how the layering kind of came to be. Let's see if you can see this one up on the top there. That one is called Califia's Garden. And I had taken a model years ago out into the Elwood butterfly field. And had her pose. And so that figure in there is from an original painting. And then on top of that, all the layers started happening. And then that informed how I started painting, and I started putting in more paints. Now, can you guys see me okay?
Your screen did disappear. I don't know if you hit the stop.
No, cannot.
Okay. Darn. Well, let's ask me another question, then I'll show you
Sure.
some
We'll
details.
keep moving along.
I had a question that I put on chat.
Okay.
Why the oval and centralized compositions?
Because I started thinking about this as icons, iconography, that kind of format, that kind of lended itself to a different shape rather than a square. And I think that that is really how that kind of happened. So that made me kind of look for different shapes. The oval, let me show you this one here with that big, before they came, grizzly painting. If that had done on a square, it would have been very, very modern, but I wanted to also harken back to something that was in the backdrop of a cameo. I'll show you some of these little lover's eye pieces right here. I'm trying to line my camera up. I don't know if you can see that shimmer off the top of the paintings there. That is because the paintings have been brimmed with copper, and that kind of adds to that iconography. Speaking of shape specifically, there is this one that I built as a retablo. You can kind of see that a little bit here in the gallery. And that was actually to have that whole religious icon effect. So kind of elevating these things symbolically.
Jumping off of that iconography idea, RT Livingston asked, she said, kudos for this dynamic series. She wondered, the Califia and Beyond series communicates with a decidedly California accent. I believe that all art is a self-portrait. Is Califia a mythical version of you, Holly?
Yeah.
You know, I think it's really funny because I think it is true that we always end up painting ourselves. And any of my artist friends who paint the figure or paint portraits, you will see a little bit of yourself in almost every painting. I think it's at a subconscious level or something. I chose Califia as thinking of this strong female figure lead, the strength and power of women. And I don't know if that was like brewing at the same time, but think of all the movements that we're going through and where we are right now and how that's been in a collective consciousness. I think that as artists, when we're really listening to our own muses, we're also reflecting back of what's happening in the world around us.
Definitely. And she had another question leading off of that, asking, throughout the series, layers of imagery support layers of symbolism. You shape many of your paintings in what look like oblong quatrefoils. Did you make that choice based on symbolism or style or both? You touched on that a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, the shapes are definitely meant to speak to what I'm trying to convey. The shapes, the layering, I love it when people come in and they say, oh my gosh, I never even saw that there before. Because I do want it to be explored, slowly unraveled, because that's how I think I get information and I make discoveries. So I think that that's intentional. Or
Can
Go ahead.
Can I add something, Holly? The reason I asked about quatrefoils is because it's such an ancient symbol. It was used often in Gothic, Romanesque, not so much Romanesque, but Gothic cathedrals. And it's also a symbol used by Native Americans to symbolize the four directions, north, south, east, west. It's a symbol of good luck, the four-leaf clover and so on. And I was wondering if you were conscious of those links to symbolism.
Yes. The panels that I got, they were kind of titled, I found them with Trekell panels, and they had like a Gothic series, ornate panels, and I was going back and looking at shapes of early history, other pieces of artwork, you know, how we would have a painting of somebody in our home. So when I found the panels, I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is going to help me make it an icon. So it was very conscious, and it's fun to explore all of where you see those shapes again in history, because my painting is also very influenced by other artists that I study or love or look at or say, oh, I want to try that. I want to explore that method. I've really been into looking at surreal art lately. So there you go. It shows up.
Eli asked, what does the braid chain represent in Inez and Barbara?
Oh, that's the story of how we are chained. I'll kind of turn around so maybe you can see that painting, to each other with the San Ynez River. Lake Cachuma holds the majority of our water for our city. And we've built these 3 tunnels and dams through the Los Padres National Park mountain range. So you can imagine how much effort that has gone into that over the last 100 years for us to have enough water here. So we're chained together. What would we do without the San Ynez River? I don't know. Kind of a scary thought.
Yeah.
I don't want to find out. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, neither do we. Eli also asked, Oak and Acorn seems to be different from a lot of your other pieces. What inspired the use of shapes and clean lines?
Oh, right up here, the one on top of that, right here. And all of these are accessible on Sullivan Goss website, on my website. This one, Kathleen Marshall was one of my portrait subjects. She is part of the Santa Ynez band of Chumash. And I was really looking at that region, and sometimes I'll put in a painting and it'll completely get buried, but I know it's underneath there. And sometimes they come back and forth, and her face kept on emerging, and I would paint it out and it would come back. And it really became kind of, the painting was talking to me that this the face needs to stay. And the Fibonacci is all about that spiral of history coming forward and back and what we find. I'm gonna try to get close enough, if I can be tricky here. No, I'm not tricky enough. I don't know if you can see any of those details, but there's a lot of imagery that is embedded underneath, and then the Fibonacci tile and spiral sits on top. Hope that answered your question, Eli.
Thank you.
And Mary asked in the chat, are you tempted to make the COVID crisis a subject at all in your work?
Good question. Gosh, there's so much to respond to on that. I wonder if I kept on working, if I kept on being in these circumstances, which I'm hoping that this is temporary. There's a good chance that I might do a whole body of work coming out of my garden, because I've spent so much time gardening, and the pandemic's forced me to be at home. It hasn't forced me. I've gotten numerous gifts out of being there and enjoying it, and just that crazy good feeling you get when you're just working, digging in the dirt and doing your thing. It's been a joy. So I would naturally gravitate towards that. And I've often thought, oh, maybe I should start doing some little gouaches of my garden of all the interesting succulents. And I'm telling you, I had so many butterflies, and they would fly through the garden, and I swear they were talking to me, just telling me to keep on making these paintings. So.
Yeah. That's wonderful. I had a question. I love the incredible amount of symbolism and thoughtful detail that you have in all of your work. And I was curious about the milagros and embroidery that you mentioned. Where do you source the milagros, and how do you determine which embellishments you incorporate in one work or another?
Finish that last second part of the question.
What determines kind of which embellishments go with which piece? Does the embellishment inspire the work, or does it come on at the very end?
Both. the printmaking, I'm using a lot of matrices and tools and everything that are actually, like some of the patterning has been made by these hand-carved woodblock stamps that are from India and Indian fabric making. I have some really old antique etchings that you saw when I was talking about the gold rush and these animals. So some of the things that I'm using are actually from other artists. And to me, that is something that's kind of magical, that I'm taking something that was handmade, something made by somebody else, and I'm putting my hands on it and it's going into my artwork. And the Milagros made me think of that. So I do want to keep on putting them on my prints. I loved the handwork on the prints. I loved doing it. I want to try doing some sewing on my prints. I'm getting out my sewing machine. It's just going to be a fun process to keep on adding. But I also think Stephanie Mutz came down to see the show, and she's the urchin diver that was in my portrait project. And she was telling me about how COVID's affected her world and, you know, the food industry and everything. And I thought of these little milagros that I had with fish on it. And it's like, over the years, the hundreds of years, you know, how many fishermen have prayed for good weather or for them to catch enough fish to feed their families. And I'm sure even our Chumash went through periods of bizarre famines and where their food sources were limited, but that we were still, you know, praying that these things would come along. So I find them to be really kind of fun to think somebody else made this, and now I'm picking it up and putting it in my work.
Yeah. We have a question from Carrie Smith in the chat. Do you find that printmaking feeds your painting and vice versa? How many pieces will you have on the go at one time?
Well, the printmaking, yes, they both feed each other, because like I said with that Mariposa monarcha, which I will turn around here and you can see that one behind me, that originally, that idea came with the printmaking. That was done, the prints came first, and I started doing the Dias de los Muertos skull in my prints. And then I thought, oh, I want to make a painting. And so then I got the model, and I have so many wonderful, inspiring photos from that session. I'm sure I'm not done with it yet. I mean, it was a great day, and so both kind of feed each other.
Very cool. I had another question. You mentioned German paper dolls as one of the pattern inspirations and before they came. And I was curious, how did you come across those dolls, and how do you source some of these really interesting historical pieces?
I was born at just the right time to have access to the internet, and the way we can get information now. It can be a sickness in the sense that I can just fall down this hole of researching stuff. And I want to qualify, everything I share is just something I've found that speaks to me, that I say out of curiosity, this is completely fascinating. I am not a historian or an expert on anything. So I'm just giving you what I find and share and what tickles my fancy. So the paper dolls came out of that source. I was researching what was happening, and then there was this fascination with the gold rush in the West and Europe. I have for a long time, and Mary, my aunt, can attest to this, I've been kind of collecting paper dolls because they're really interesting. You know, how we dress them up, and it holds a little bit of cultural history. And at some point I'm going to do something with paper dolls, you know, recutting them, doing life size. I don't know, who knows how that will come out. So when I found the Indian paper dolls, it was like, oh, caught my attention on a couple levels. And then I researched the year that they were made, and then I found out they were made in Germany, and then that led to the fascination of the Europeans with the Wild West.
Yeah. another question just came in the chat from Stacy. She wants to know, why do you choose to use wax in your works and how do you apply it?
Okay, I'm going to take you over to a piece. I discovered cold wax, and remember, I'm kind of a materials junkie. If it's out there, I might want to try it. And I had done a lot with encaustics several years ago, and I loved it, but it's very labor intensive. And cold wax kind of tickled my fancy on a couple different levels. In this piece, you can kind of start seeing some of that detail underneath where I can scrape things away and pull things forward. Cold wax, I mix the oil paint in it, and if you can think of a really loose beeswax, that's basically what it is. And I just blend it in, and then I can scrape it over the top. I can dig into it. I can make it really kind of transparent. I can sand it off after a while, or build it up and add texture. So it's just another way to manipulate the oil paint.
Can you mix other kinds of paints also in with the wax, or does it really need to be oil primarily?
Well, it's primarily meant for oil. However, I have used it on top of gouaches to seal them so that they don't have to be put under glass. And so it's very much like Dorland's wax, which is another cold wax product. And Chris Chapman taught me that. I learned that from him.
I see a note here on the side from Monica. She just wanted to let you know she loves seeing your thoughts and curiosity woven through the work, and says it's a buffet of eye candy, which I totally agree. That's the end of my questions that I received from everyone, but feel free if anyone else wants to jump in with any last questions or comments.
Well, I will conclude it with this thought: is all of you are in my Califia muse. I learn more from my friends and my art family in exploring these ideas. And anytime you get ideas, pass them on, or if something inspires you, or some nutty fact that you just find fascinating, I will probably geek out on that with you. So we can do that. And I just wanted to clarify too with Stacy, is actually I have all of my formal education in science. I was an ergonomics major up at UCSB. So I think that adds a little bit to how I explore information. So, yeah. And thank you so much for having me today and letting me share all this great information. This has been a labor of love, and it always gives me joy to share it with everybody. And so love to the Wildling, love to Sullivan and Goss, love to my art family, friends, everybody who tuned in.
Thank you so much, Holly. It was wonderful.
Thanks. Okay, I'll see you in real life. Hopefully you'll want to come down and see the show.
Yes.
Bye, Holly.
Bye-bye.
And thanks, Susan and Sullivan and Goss. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Wilding. Thank you, Sullivan and Goss. Thanks, Holly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Holly.
Holly.
Thank you. Oh, now I can see you.